He always knew before I did. That was the strange part. Before the tightness in my chest formed words, before my smile began to ache, before the small lies I told myself stacked high enough to block the light, he knew. He knew when I was lying to myself. I met Adam on a Tuesday that felt like a Thursday, the kind of day that drags its feet and pretends it's something else. I was sitting in the back corner of a neighborhood library, pretending to read a book I had checked out 3 weeks earlier and renewed twice without opening. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer. My coffee had gone cold. I was rehearsing a version of myself that looked functional from the outside and hollowed out on the inside. Adam sat down across from me without asking, not rude, just certain. He placed his notebook between us, nodded once, and smiled as if we were continuing a conversation already in progress. "You're holding the book upside down," he said gently. I laughed, embarrassed, and turned it right side up. "Guess I needed a break." "You've been on a break," he said. Not accusing. Observant. That should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like relief. We talked after that, about nothing important at first. He asked questions that were easy to answer and harder to answer honestly. What did I like to do when no one was watching? When was the last time I felt proud of myself? What lie did I tell most often? "That last one's too personal," I said, smiling. "Then it's probably the one," he replied. Adam volunteered at the library, helping people find books they didn't know they needed. He worked part-time at a community center and spent the rest of his time listening, to children who spoke too fast, to elders who spoke too slow, to silences most people rushed to fill. He didn't give advice unless asked. He didn't interrupt. He had a way of pausing that made you realize you hadn't finished speaking, even when you thought you had. We started meeting every Tuesday. Sometimes at the library, sometimes walking through the park nearby. I told him about my job that drained me, my relationships that stalled, my constant feeling of being almost okay. I told him I was fine so often that the word began to taste like chalk. "You say, fine, the way people say, hello," he said once. Automatic. Empty. "I am fine," I insisted. He stopped walking and looked at me, not with concern, not with judgment, but with curiosity, like someone noticing a pattern in the sky. "You're convincing yourself," he said softly. "Not me." That was the first time he said it outright. That was the first time I felt seen in a way that scared me. After that, I became more careful with my words. I curated my sentences, polished my stories, hid the cracks with humor. Adam didn't call me out. He didn't need to. He'd just tilt his head slightly, or go quiet, or ask a question that slipped past my defenses. "What would happen if you stopped pretending this doesn't hurt?" "I don't pretend," I said quickly. He smiled, the smallest smile. That was fast. Sometimes kindness isn't loud. Sometimes it's patient. Adam's kindness was a steady presence, a mirror that didn't distort or flatter. He never told me who I should be. He just reflected who I was being, and left the rest to me. One evening, after a particularly long day, I told him I was thinking of quitting my job. I listed all the reasons it made sense. The hours. The lack of growth. The way it slowly chipped away at me. I sounded confident, decisive. "You've been thinking about this for a while," he said. "Yes," I replied. "I'm ready." He waited. Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, just honest. "You're ready to think about being ready," he said. I felt my throat tighten. "What does that mean?" "It means you're afraid," he said, not unkindly. "And you're dressing fear up as logic so it feels respectable." I wanted to argue. Instead, I laughed and shook my head. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," he said. "Simple doesn't mean easy." There were days I avoided him. Days when I didn't want to be known that clearly. On those days, I told myself I was busy, that our meetings were casual, that I didn't owe anyone honesty. Adam never chased. He'd just send a message, thinking of you. Library's quiet today. Or, the park smells like rain. Hope you're okay. No pressure. No guilt. Just presence. The lie I told myself most often was that I didn't need anyone. That independence meant isolation. That asking for help was weakness. Adam never argued with that lie directly. He just showed up, consistently, until the lie began to feel heavy. One afternoon, I broke. Not dramatically. Just quietly, like something giving way after holding too much for too long. We were sitting on a bench, watching children chase pigeons. I told him I felt like a failure. That I'd wasted time. That everyone else seemed to know where they were going. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he nodded once. "You're telling the truth now," he said. I wiped my eyes, embarrassed. "How can you tell?" "Because you stopped performing," he replied. "There's no audience when you're honest like that." I expected reassurance, maybe encouragement. What I got was something better. "You're not behind," he said. "You're just becoming aware." That night, I went home and wrote down every lie I'd been telling myself. "I'm fine. I'll start tomorrow. It's not that bad. This is just how life is." Seeing them on paper stripped them of their power. They looked small. Manageable. Change didn't happen all at once. It rarely does. I didn't quit my job immediately. I didn't suddenly become brave. But I started telling the truth in smaller ways. I admitted when I was tired. I asked for help when I needed it. I said no without apology. Adam noticed, of course. "You're lighter," he said one Tuesday. "I'm tired," I replied. He smiled. Both can be true. The kindness he showed me slowly became kindness I showed myself. I learned to pause before dismissing my feelings. To listen without judgment. To sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. I learned that honesty isn't harsh, it's gentle when handled with care. Eventually, our Tuesdays became less frequent. Life expanded. I took a different job. I moved closer to the city. Adam stayed where he was, rooted, steady. We promised to keep in touch, and we did, though less often. The last time we met, we walked through the same park where so many conversations had unfolded. The trees were changing, leaves falling without apology.